So I'm just going to give it another minute to see if anybody pops on. I know I didn't post it. I was going to come on today at 3:45, so I'll just hang tight. But regardless, I would still like to go through the third eye chakra, whether there's anybody present or not, because it seems folks have been watching the videos in the replay after the fact. So me, as if I'm running some big organization here, doing the Awakening Soul Force group. Hey, Laureen. Hola, mi amiga. ¿Cómo estás? Hay muchos vientos hoy. It is so windy outside, everybody. It's crazy. Well, since Laureen's here, I'm just going to dive into the third eye chakra for Laureen. And if other folks jump on, they'll jump right along. They can watch the replay. But since I'm a little bit scheduled today, I'm going to go ahead and cruise right into this. What is happening? I went on a hike today in Towsley Canyon. Apparently it's now on fire. And I am not excited about that, Laureen. It's very sad. I love Towsley. So hopefully they fight that fire and they save it. So here we are now. I'm going to come do this broadcast, hoping that my favorite hike in town doesn't burn down. So Laureen, if you're willing to stick around, I'm going to talk about the third eye chakra. Shall we dive into it? Without further ado, let's talk about the third eye chakra. So this is the sixth of seven chakras that we're talking about. So far, we've talked about the root chakra. We've talked about the sacral chakra. We've talked about the solar plexus. We've talked about the heart chakra, which is the bridge between the earthbound chakras and the spirit chakras. We talked about the throat chakra yesterday. It's our center of communication, listening, learning, hearing, speaking, and spiritual truth and integrity. Today, we're talking about the third eye chakra, number 6. It's our vision. So let's dive into it. I'm reading out of Awakening Soul Force, Practical Guide to Awakening the Truth Within by yours truly, Jeff Bomberger. So if you find this content interesting, feel free to pick up a copy at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. I'm sure they would be happy to deliver it to you. All right, folks, here we go. Third eye chakra. Let's talk about it. Let's do the deep dive. We live in a visual, media-driven age. Every day, our senses are bombarded with images and visions other people have created with the hopes of influencing our behavior. No one goes into business, Hollywood, or politics to pitch a product that doesn't sell. So these folks need us to see what they want us to see in order to get what they want. That's why there's such big money behind public relations campaigns and marketing efforts. Being able to see deeply and clearly is important, not only for our health and energetic balance, but for the world's as well. The content we watch, the products we consume, and the stories we believe become a part of us when we adopt these visions and live them through our actions. Yet, what about our vision? What about our ideals? What do we hold true? By awakening our own spiritual vision, we gain the agency to fulfill our duty. We gain the agency to fulfill our duty to ourselves and the world, which is to bring our unique perspective on life, love, freedom, and spirituality, and bring it into being through our modeled behavior. Learning to tune into our psychic abilities, our highest spiritual perspective, and enlightened vision is the realm of the third eye chakra. Sounds pretty awesome, right? I hope so. Hola, Marcy. Lorene, I'm so glad you're here, ready to rock and roll. Vamos. If you're here, say hello, say hola. ¿Cómo están? Todos mis amigos. I'm working on it. I got 100% on my midterm today. Very simple, basic questions and responses, but I aced my Spanish exam today. I'm very excited about it. Okay, so let's talk about the basics of the third eye chakra. The color is indigo or deep blue. The location, the third eye is located on the center of the forehead, just above the brow. What it is, the ability to see both our inner and outer world clearly is the domain of the third eye chakra. It is associated with the qualities of wisdom, intuition, psychic ability, witnessing, discernment, imagination, intuition, justice, and ethics. Body parts. Physically, this chakra is connected to our brain, skull, nose, eyes, central nervous system, and pineal gland. So we've talked about this a couple times before. I always stop here at the body parts, but it's just a reminder that these chakras have a relationship and an influence on all of our being, the entirety of who and what we are, from the most high vibrating energetic self to the lowest, most dense vibrating energetic part of the self, which is our physical body. So sometimes when we're having symptoms or issues or problems, hey, Catherine, in, let's say, our brain, skull, nose, eyes, CNS, the central nervous system, and the pineal gland, if we're having issues there, this could be an indicator that we have some chakra work to do. There's some energetic disruption. Maybe there's a block. Maybe there's beliefs or perspectives, or there's stuff that's influencing and manifesting itself as physical pain or complications in these areas. So just something to think about. I like to use pain and symptoms as a way to trace backward into my consciousness what's going on. Because I don't think of our physical pain and our thoughts or our mentality or our consciousness as separate. They're the same thing, and they're manifesting at different levels. So I always use physical signs and symptoms to cue me into when I need to look a little deeper at something, or if I need to bring something into balance. How do we know if the third eye chakra is in balance? Here's some things to consider. When the third eye is in balance, we are able to focus, concentrate, and enjoy a state of mental clarity. We are perceptive and willing to accept the truth, no matter how good, how bad, or how ugly it looks. Our intuition is sharper, which means that we are more able to read between the lines and use proper discernment. We rely on our direct experience and our inner soul force authority to guide our beliefs instead of listening to authority figures. Clear seeing allows us to put ourselves in people's shoes, see from different perspectives, and achieve a higher, more spiritual perspective that transcends black and white dualistic thinking. Spiritual insight, increased psychic ability and awareness, access to higher wisdom, and inspired visions are also benefits of a well-balanced third eye chakra. So those are some signs of balance. And it's funny that Catherine is in here because Catherine did a video that I watched. So sorry, I'm going to bring it up, but I saw it online. Hopefully that's not uncomfortable, but you've put these videos out there, and you've been doing a lot of advocating about having been a victim, it sounds like, of a narcissistic abuse. And you did a video the other day that was about having a dinner conversation with a narcissist, and I got to tell you, I was not expecting it to be so spot on and triggering, and then like a way triggering. I didn't like freak out about it, but I was watching it and I was so uncomfortable. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because part of bringing this center into balance, one of the things that we can be at risk for if an imbalance in the third eye is manipulation. And having been through an incredibly abusive, emotionally and verbally abusive relationship, like watching the scene that you had created reminded me of like that time of being in that space. And I was like, that is too spot on, too true. It is very dizzying. So like you, Catherine, I have a sensitivity to when thoughts, or I should say words and actions are not matching up, and when there's like deliberate and like belligerent lies or deception. It's rough. So you did a really great job of capturing that, and I just want to let you know that. So again, bringing that up because one of the benefits of having such a balance, or having balance in our third eye, is to be able to see clearly through BS, is to be able to see things for what they are. And that also means seeing the human side of things too. So don't get me wrong, there is a human side and a human element to narcissism and manipulators, and understanding that and seeing that clearly, not taking it personally, not getting swept up in the dizziness is part of our mission, and part of our goal is someone who's not gonna fall prey to those kinds of antics and tactics. Onward. So causes for imbalance. Causes for imbalance in this third eye center. So let's think about this. Rigid thinking and over-intellectualization, super easy word for me to say, I wrote it, can create an imbalance in the third eye chakra. Imbalances in the lower chakras can also cause blockages in this energy center. Being overly emotional or judgmental of others, as well as acting arrogantly or egomaniacally, can throw our third eye out of balance. Substance abuse and addiction will also cloud our vision in this energy center. Denying our spiritual self and believing that this world is simply a material machine can cut us off from the flow of psychic and spiritual energy that is meant to pass through this third eye chakra. So just to kind of revisit, signs of balance. We have an ability to focus, concentrate, enjoy mental clarity. We're willing to see and accept the truth, no matter how good, bad, or ugly it is. And that's an important thing. I always tell folks, like, I just want the truth. Even if you think it's going to make me uncomfortable, if you think it's going to hurt my feelings, if you think it's not what I want to hear, I want to hear it, or I want to see it for what it is, so I know how to relate to it. The honest truth gives me agency and to decide, how do I want to relate to this fact of life? Do I want to engage it? Do I want to embrace it? Do I want to keep it at a distance? Do I want to wait for later? You know, there's so much there. Just being able to see clearly. So when we're acting arrogant or we're egomaniacal, we're caught up in our head, we're being a narcissist, that can block our vision here. We get caught up in too myopic of a vision. So that kind of stuff can cause an imbalance in this center. And also denying our spiritual self, being in denial about the world and sort of the magic of the world, if I will say, can also cut us off to having that inspiration, that insight, and that inspired clarity come through this center. Catherine says, yes, I was very influenced and confused, and that's what narcissistic abuse goes, a lot of confusion. Yeah, you doubt your senses and your reality, 100%. I have been there. No me gusta. No me gusta at all. Okay, so here's some signs for when things are out of balance. So we've talked about signs of balance, some of the causes of imbalance: rigid thinking, over-intellectualization, blockages, not minding the chakras under here, can sometimes create a blockage up there. That goes back to something I talked about a few lessons ago about how it's an interconnected system. And if we've got an energy block or a backup or too much energy in one area, well, it can start to throw out the rest. It can throw the rest out of balance because it's all working together in harmony to keep us energetically stable. I like to think of it as in chemistry, we learn about like stable and unstable ions. And if there's an unstable element, sometimes a molecule will share its electrons to bring stability into the compound, right? To create a compound and create stability. I think of it like that. Like we energetically want to keep ourselves harmonized and in balance. So all of it, all centers are firing on all cylinders, that we're sensitive and open, but at the same time discerning about how we engage with the world. So what are some signs that the third eye is out of balance? So just do a little self-check-in here, see if any of this stuff resonates for you. And then, we can ask questions or talk about where to go from here if you have questions about it. When the third eye chakra is out of balance, it may physically manifest itself as issues related to the nervous system and brain. Neurological disorders, dizziness, headaches, seizures, and balance issues may be physical indicators that the third eye chakra needs attention. Blurred vision, blindness, and sinus issues can also arise if there is an imbalance in this energy center. Mental illness, psychological issues, nightmares, and psychic exhaustion are all physical signs we need to balance the third eye chakra. When we have too much energy flowing in the third eye, we may find ourselves living in a total fantasy world and excessively daydreaming to avoid reality. Conversely, we could find ourselves being too logical or dogmatic in our thinking. So that goes back to that rigid thinking stuff. In some cases, this could lead to our becoming authoritarian or belittling others in order to impose our vision in an unjust manner. Obsessive compulsive behavior and paranoia are also signs of hyperactivity in the third eye chakra. Too much energy flowing in this center can lead to an overstimulation of the imagination and hypersensitivity to psychic stimuli. So I don't think I mentioned this with the other chakras, the difference between overactive and underactive, but I want to offer it here because this is a really important thing. It comes through very often in readings for folks. It's something that I have to be very mindful of because I have a very active third eye chakra, and that is when we have an overabundance of energy in a center, which leads to some of the stuff we've talked about. So here we're talking about becoming like authoritarian, rigid in our thinking, it's our way or the highway in our vision, obsessive compulsive behavior, paranoia. Grounding is the way to alleviate or essentially ground out some of that energy. So it's not too different than when we're working with electricity. I just wired my first electrical outlet this weekend with my dad. And while I was familiar with the terminology, but there was the hot wire, the positive, and then there was the ground. Part of our habit, a good habit to get into, especially when we're talking about engaging with the world of energy, is grounding. And that means physically, like putting our feet on the ground, in the dirt, in the grass, on the sand, putting our butt on the ground, in the dirt, in the grass, on the sand. Actually having physical touch with nature is very grounding. The meditations we do can be very grounding, where we drop the grounding cord, into the center of the earth, and we think about not only welcoming the energy that comes in from the earth, but we do the energy clearing exercise that those of you who have watched have probably seen before. We breathe in, we welcome in energy through the crown and kind of wash it through us, and then it grounds out into the ground and into the floor, into the earth. So grounding, when we have overactive energy in any of the chakras, whether it's the third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, sacral, or root, grounding is always a great practice to bring us back to balance. I'm not going to say zero, but neutral and harmonious, cooperative. Grounding is really, really, really important for us energetically as beings, and it doesn't matter what chakra we're talking about or we're working with, but especially for those of us who are really interested in psychic phenomenon, we are working with a spiritual energy or spiritual energies more so than others. If we're working with people a lot because we're a counselor, we're a social worker, or we're a parent and we're dealing with kids, grounding energy is a really good way to sort of clear things out and just kind of bring yourself back to neutral, back to balance, back to a natural state of harmony. To have butt grounding. Yeah, it's a thing. I put my butt on the ground all the time. Of course, I'm wearing clothes, but I put my butt on the ground because it's good to connect to the earth. So that's the overactive third eye. An underactive third eye may leave us feeling uninspired, unimaginative, and unable to visualize our hopes and dreams. We may lack clarity and focus, since common sense and spiritual insights both seem to escape us when there is insufficient energy in this energy center. Our thinking may become too rigid and linear. We may view life from a narrow, subjective point of view, unable to see ourselves and our lives from a higher, broader perspective. When we are lacking energy in this center, we are also cut off from our psychic senses. So those are some symptoms of an underactive third eye. And we're going to talk about, how do we charge up, how do we give a jump to this center in a second. And one of the ways we can do it is by simply focusing our time and attention and taking a moment to not only speak these words, but to really try and feel into what they mean. So some mantras for the third eye, if we're working to bring that into balance. I see clearly. I see truth. I am open to the wisdom of the divine. I see with the eyes of spirit. I see clearly. I see truth. I am open to the wisdom of the divine. I see with the eyes of spirit. And that's one that I like. I see with the eyes of spirit. A very common prayer or meditation that I engage in pretty regularly is asking for spiritual vision, is asking for higher vision, is seeing my situation or the situation at hand through a more spiritual lens or perspective, meaning I'm seeing a broader picture. I'm seeing more than just my role. I'm seeing the growth opportunities in front of me. I'm seeing the potential growth for others involved. I'm trying to see the roles that we're playing in each other's lives to bring about a more awareness, more light, more understanding, and the growth, and how all those forces are interacting. So sometimes I will ask for that vision because I'm trying to see things from a broader perspective, not just from my point of view and the way that I'm feeling or what I'm perceiving, but if I was going to be objective and pull myself out of this and look like as if I was watching a movie or a drama or a play, what would all these dynamics look like? What's in play? And that's a very helpful practice for me. Gene says, can grief cause underactivity? So grief, the first thing that I thought of when you said that is that what can cause the underactivity is when we sort of like lose faith, or we have like a crisis of faith, or we're doubting whether like spirit exists, whether there is a God, whether there's a connection to something greater than us, like all of those things can very much become a block for us in our third eye. We're closing ourselves off to that kind of inspiration. We're closing ourselves off to that possibility. If we're really seriously and heavily doubting it, or if we're now convinced that it doesn't matter and there's nothing bigger, there's nothing greater, there's no higher purpose, there's no broader view to get, then that will cut it off. With that said, like I've mentioned, each disruption in a center can cause blockages and backup. So if grief in our heart can cause a foreboding sense of heaviness, or like a lack of, it might create a sense of, feeling overwhelmed, being really emotional, not belonging anymore, feeling unloved because of this trauma or this thing that happened. And that's going to have an effect on all the centers, right? And that's how that could lead to being cut off to the higher perspective, or to the insight or information that might be willing to come through in our vision, in our clear vision. Thank you. It is helpful. Heaviness is a good way to describe it. Yeah. And grief is tough, I feel like we move through it. We got to move through it. We got to understand it. We got to be with it. We got to hold it. We got to look at it, understand it, love on it. And to me, that's where like faith and love and an openness to a larger perspective or a broader perspective, or the lessons, the growth that can come from what we're moving through from that grief, is where we can kind of keep this spirit alive, and it can keep us going and powering forward and progressing to integrate our grief, to understand it, and to really let it be what it is, and acknowledge it. It's absolutely a part of life. It's challenging. It's challenging, but it's a thing. I'm glad that it resonates for you, Gene. I'm really glad. So let's talk about generating positive energy in the third eye. And when I say that, it's more like, how do we jumpstart the battery? If this is an underactive energy center, if we're out of balance, grounding is a really important thing, because grounding can help us ground out and sort of neutralize some of the overactive, energy that might be too much. And charging this energy up with a little, like we're jumping a battery on a car, generating positive energy. We can do this with activities and action. And this can help us get in touch with this dimension of ourself. So the third eye is where we get in touch with our mystical selves, tap into that mystical part of yourself. It's where imagination, intellect, and intuition meet to give us a holistic view of ourselves and reality. Therefore, using your imagination and engaging in visualization meditations can charge up this energy center. Practicing yoga can also be quite helpful for the third eye, as this practice turns our attention toward conscious breathing and inner life. Because this is related to our inner vision, right? So turning your awareness to your inner life through yoga or meditation, which is what we're going to talk about in a sec, are really great ways to kind of open this up. It's not just about what we see and perceive out there. So much of what we perceive and see out there has a direct relationship to what's going on in here. What's the filter? How do we see ourselves? How do we see ourselves in relationship to the world around us? Creating a relaxing and harmonious environment that allows you to go inward can be helpful in accessing the more subtle aspects of yourself and opening up to inner wisdom. Sleep is incredibly important for the health of the third eye chakra as well. This is one thing that I'm not great with no sleep. With bad sleep, disrupted sleep, and I notice it intuitively. Like it does kind of jam up, my creative insight or my creative ability, my intuition. It does disrupt me big time. The chakra is all about seeing deeper and going beyond what is on the surface and getting into the more ethereal, energetic essence of what is. When we consciously work with this center to allow higher wisdom and expanded spiritual vision, we reclaim our personal power and the ability to heal ourselves in a significant way. So there we have it. A little overview of the third eye chakra. I would love to know, does anybody have any questions about the third eye or working with it? Anything that resonated in particular? or not in this chapter. This is, to me, this is such an interesting center. We have one more we're going to talk about tomorrow, the crown chakra, which is kind of like our direct link to source, to the universe, to God consciousness, however you want to refer to it. We're talking about that tomorrow. But the third eye really is, to kind of continue off of yesterday's discussion, if the crown chakra is kind of like our direct link to source, it's almost like how we're plugged in to the great before and the great beyond. For those of you who have watched Soul, which is an incredible Pixar movie, highly recommend it. It's amazing. So since that's kind of like our direct plug to what's beyond us, the third eye center is kind of like the first center where we start to integrate that connection. And it goes from vision to our ability to speak and hear and communicate that, to our heart, which becomes the bridge to integrating that spiritual vision and that insight, that creativity and that awareness into the body. So we get into the solar plexus, which is how we move, the way we exercise our will in the world and our freedom, and how we kind of exert or express our personality, not only through physical action, but the way we carry ourselves in relationship to people. Then you've got the the sacral chakra, which is creative self-expression. It's emotional. So it's this another dimension of ourselves that we're integrating, this higher insight and wisdom and vision into our expressions. So can we actually, so if the solar plexus is us walking the talk, doing those things that are in alignment, well, the sacral chakra is our emotional intelligence. Are we processing our emotions? Are we expressing our emotions in a way that's in alignment with our higher spiritual ideals, with our vision, with our heightened awareness, with our expanded awareness? And then finally, the root chakra, integrating this all the way down into basically the core of our being, of our existence, into the very DNA, our cells, our bones, the way we create and manifest and just move and engage in the world. That's the place where that happens. So because the crown chakra is the direct link to source, and the root chakra is our full embodiment of being here in a physical body, interacting with the physical world, interacting with other physical beings, all this stuff in between are the various channels and ways in which those higher ideals and that higher expanded awareness gets to be expressed. So the third eye chakra is very important in that regard, is that, it kind of sets the tone in a sense, and at least in my experience, is that so much comes from here. We're such visual people, we're such a visual culture and society. We rely on our eyes for so many things. We also rely on our inner vision to guide everything, to guide our actions, to guide our thoughts, our words, our deeds, to guide the art that we create, to guide how and who we enter relationship with, and what are the terms and agreements, the appropriateness and all that of all those relationships. That all trickles down from here. So I find this to be an incredibly important center because we talk about it all the time in the spirit realm. We talk about it in groups like this, and I just think it's of the utmost importance to understand it and to work with it and feel it out in your own way. Grounding is really important, because otherwise we'll get off into fantasy land and we become detached from reality. But we don't want to be so grounded that there's no inspiration, there's no creativity, there's no vision, there's no hope, there's no optimism, there's no possibilities. And so that's kind of the polarity that we're working with. And to me, that's why it's such an essential center. Because you have, on one hand, it's where all the possibilities and imagination and creativity and the blessings of higher dimensions of consciousness can be shared. And if it's too far out there, we're going to be really disconnected from this reality. And again, if it's too blocked off, if it's basically cement and if it's cemented and not grounded, well, then we lose all those beautiful gifts, that inspiration, that insight, and that wisdom. So just something to think about, reflect on the things we talked about today, meditate on it. I will post some meditations today, a chakra balancing meditation, since we're nearing the end of these discussions about the chakras. And I think it'd be really great to just go through it at least once and get a sense of at least a way that I found that was comfortable for me and effective in helping bring balance and bring awareness to each of these energy centers. So that's it. That's the third eye chakra, the third eye center. And in the spirit of not trying to be too overbearing with the shoulds and should nots of the third eye, I'm done. This is a place that we would definitely want to spend some more time exploring for ourselves. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take it. If not, I'll give it probably 30 seconds or so, and I'm just going to sign off, check out. You're welcome, Gene. You're welcome very much. It's a pleasure to share this stuff and to share my perspective and have this dialogue, because I know that understanding these things have been paramount for me, and I share it in hopes that my journey and how I'm articulating it and how I'm sharing it resonates for somebody, and it does help somebody. So the fact that it helps you means it's all worth it. That's very satisfying. So thank you so much for that. All right, folks, I'm going to sign out. I'm going to finish some Spanish homework, and then I'm going to go meet my folks for some dinner. So thanks for joining me today. I'm going to post this. I'm going to post this as in the announcements. So if you're catching this today, you haven't caught the other ones, just click the announcements on the Awakening Soul Force page, and you'll see there's a video for each one of these, the ones we've done so far. The root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, and now the third eye center. Marcy says, I've learned I need to balance all these chakras. We all do. And it's a continual thing. You're not alone in that. It's a constant work in progress. It's just in the beginning, when we haven't given any time or attention to these aspects of ourselves, it can feel like a little more work. But over time, one step at a time, it gets a little bit easier to keep the room clean, so to speak. So there you go. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Don't blow away in the wind if you're somewhere like it's windy here. I know the Pacific Northwest is having winds too, so don't blow away. Stay grounded. Drop that grounding cord so you don't blow away in the wind. And we'll talk tomorrow about the crown chakra. See y'all later.